I'm Sherry Burr, and I have a co-host for this show, Matthew Gandert, who's a currently enrolled law student at the University of New Mexico. Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you.
Good to have you here. And our special guest is Gerald Weinberg, who's the author of nearly 40 books, including Weinberg on Writing. Welcome, Jerry. Nice to have you here. Do you have any questions for our guest?
I have a quick question, and it's one that I was kind of thinking about before we actually came in. But one of the books, I noticed your book was about, the style of writing and kind of encouraging that. And I grew up with Strunk & White's Elements of Style, and I was wondering if that, motivated you or had any impact on you.
It's a very strong impact. I mean, it's one that I've recommended in here. This book is not about grammar or the stuff that's done. They've done the job, and a few other people have done the job. One of my principles, and this is about marketing too, is if somebody else has done 80% as good a job as I think I could do on a book, then I don't bother, even if I started it and so on. My second best-selling book, maybe it's the first, I don't know, was also rejected. I was actually working on it consciously for 14 years, and I would put it aside. Because I don't really know this. I don't know enough about it. I can't do this. And then somebody would come out with a book on the subject. It was on thinking, what we call general systems thinking. And someone would come out with a book, and I would try to read it, and I'd say, well, at least I'm better than this, So, and then I'd start writing again for a couple of years, and then no, I really don't know enough about this. And then somebody else would come out with a book. This happened 3 times. And I said, well, they don't know. So finally, I came out I finished it and got it out. And it's just, it's been 35 years in print, and it still sells, and it's, and it's...
What's the name of the book?
The Introduction to General Systems Thinking. That's... Do
you make a full-time living as a writer?
Well, I do. I mean, I also get other money. From other things I do, but actually, in my case, I've made a lot of money from my books, and I've a lot of money, but I've made even more money from the books indirectly, like getting brought in to consult with people on different things, giving speeches and so on at conferences and so on, teaching classes on some of these things. Is probably at least equal to the royalty money they get. But of course, the royalty money, books that I wrote 30, 40 years ago, I'm still getting payments from, which is very nice.
Yes.
Very nice. You just open the mail every day. Almost every day there's a check for something or other.
Wow, that's pretty good.
So, somebody quoted a passage from a book and they paid a little bit on that. So it's very nice. It's a very nice career. And when you get old, you can still do it. And the money still comes in.
Yeah, I know. Well, Tony Hillerman is in his 80s, and we have this other colleague, Elsie, who's 87, who's still writing books. So that's the nice thing about a writing career, is you can do it forever.
Yeah. So, what else? Questions? Kate? Or you decide.
Oh, Kate, go ahead.
As a parent, I hear a lot, as all parents do, about the dearth of writing among young people, particularly teenagers these days, and the inability of young people to write. But at the same time, I know that my own children are involved with networked internet writing groups, where it seems to me like their methods are a little bit similar to the Fieldstone method, in that they're picking up a little piece of information or a story or part of a story or an idea from someone else on the internet and then going with that. And I wondered if you had any thoughts about teaching writing and how that might change in the future, since you do teach.
I have a lot of thoughts about teaching writing at children, and my grandchildren, they all write. I have 4 grandchildren, and they all write. They don't live near here, so I don't see them a lot, but they're always, they write a lot. And there's email, they're on MySpace, and they write stuff. People who say that about kids, when I was a kid, they were saying the same thing, right? And there was no internet, and there was, there was no television. So some kids don't write. The majority of kids don't write. Most people don't write books. You're an exception, right? And you're an exception in several ways. As is Sherry, as am I. Most people don't write books. Right? Of those who do write books, most write one book, and that's it, right? Mm-hmm. So very few people. You're 1 in 100,000. You're 1 in 100,000 who've written more than one book, published them. But there's a lot of people writing who don't publish, right?
Yes.
And to encourage kids to write, just write. And it's the opposite of what happens a lot in school. My very first school experience had to do with actually painting rather than writing, but it was this, I was, must have been 3 years old. It's the earliest memory in my life. I was, my sister, who became the lawyer, was 2 years older, and she was in kindergarten. I'd never been in school before, but my mother had to go in for a conference, and I got to go along because we couldn't afford babysitters. And that was, I remember the excitement. It was my first time in this magical place called a school. And sure enough, when I got there, my mother is over there with the teacher, and they have these little easels with pots of paint along, right? Now, see, I could never have that at home. If you have children, you don't give your kid pots of paint in the house, right? And I was so excited, and they keep me busy. They gave me brushes, and I made a painting. Right? I made a painting of a garage. I grew up in Chicago, and we used to play in the garages in the alleys. And there was a problem in painting a garage, because usually they were white and they were, with siding. And for a kid to make that hard to paint white on white and shading, and besides which I had these other colors, which I do. So I painted the siding. Every stripe was a different color. And I thought it was wonderful. I can still see it. The teacher comes over. Now, this is my very first interaction with a teacher in my whole life, right? Which I've been looking forward to, for my little life. She comes over and says, "Oh, that's very nice." She said, "What is it?" And I said, "It's a garage."
Right.
And she said, "Oh no, garages don't look like that." That's what kids get. Now and you think that doesn't make an impression on them?
It does.
I'll tell you the rest of the story. When I lived in Nebraska, I'm a little
You have to save it because we have 2 minutes left, and we have 2 questions.
I had a garage. I had to paint it. You figure out the rest.
All right. Okay, Matt and then Lee.
Well, it seems like your writing process is fairly nonlinear, but you're pretty methodical about other things like your note taking for clothes and whatnot. Is writing the only thing that you use that approach for, or other things in your life as well? The field stuff, just collect and sift.
Well, if I owned a gelati store, I would use that approach to gather recipes and ideas for my gelatis and for the store itself and the decor. And I do that for architecture. I've designed some buildings for myself, and I look for ideas everywhere. I do that. For my painting, I still do some painting, and I overcome that thing from my youth. So yes, it's very much everywhere.
Great. Last question, Lee Gentry.
Jerry, what was the catalyst to move you to a fiction writer, from your success as a fiction writer?
I had, actually my success as a nonfiction writer had kept me from writing fiction for a long time, because I can, publishers come to me and ask me to write books, and they'll pay me in advance without ever seeing anything. And in fiction it's not like that unless you have already established yourself. So it's just very tempting to keep doing that. Well, part of it is exactly what Matt was asking. I just have to do different things. So I know how to do that. It's not interesting anymore,
Right, as opposed to the Aramec project.
Yeah.
Yes. So why don't you give us a brief description?
Well, Aramec, that word, you can show it, is camera spelled backwards.
Oh, okay.
See?
Yeah,
And this is about the invention of a device that's a reverse camera.
Huh.
That it takes pictures out of your head and puts them out where other people can see them.
Okay, thank you very much, Jerry. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Matthew, for being our co-host. And thank you, the audience, for joining us for this segment of Arts Talk with Jerry Weinberg and Matthew Gandert.